welcome to Real Talk, a movie review segment from Lantern TV. I'm Wyatt Crozier. Joining me again is Teresa Cardenas.
Hi, Wyatt.
Hi, Teresa. The movie we're talking about today is A Quiet Place. It was written, produced, directed, and stars John Krasinski, along with Emily Blunt, Noah Jupe, and Millicent Simmons. Teresa, you want to tell what the movie's about?
It opens up right in the middle of the action. It's a very tight script, and it's this family that's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and there is no noise. Every single thing that they do, it's incorporated of you have to stay quiet, no one communicates with each other, even dropping a big book bag on the ground or anything like that. You can't do any of that. So the premise of it is because there are these monsters out there that are attracted to sound because they are blind, and the purpose is really to just destroy and eat anything that makes a noise. So the family goes throughout its entire life trying to avoid this and creating as many different ways for them to not create noise, and then also ways so they can protect themselves to know if any of the monsters are coming in any other way.
And for me, I loved the trailer for this movie. It's very mysterious. It doesn't really tell you much of what it's about besides that they have to be quiet, they have to live their lives with whatever it is that's hunting them. It does a really good job at just building this tension of the unknown, of not knowing anything of really what to expect with this family, or even how it's going to be told. Mm-hmm. And right off the bat, this movie just opened up for me in a way that immediately sucked you in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think the opening scene incorporates a lot of those type of feelings. It almost reminds me to the bit of Inception. You're kind of thrown right into the middle of it. You don't know the semantics. You don't know kind of the rules of this world that you're living in. And so you just kind of have to pick it up as it is. You realize, okay, there's no talking, there's no noise, there's no all these things. There's also no other people. There's also, a deserted town. They don't have any shoes on. So these are the small things that you pick up right along the way, and it's something big immediately grabs your attention, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I'm in for it.
Right, and a lot of those things you said, it sounds like you might be giving up like a lot of plot details. You pretty much learn all these things without them telling you any of it in like 5 minutes. Yeah. They immediately, even if you haven't seen the trailer, they immediately show you all these things. You just immediately get. You have to be quiet. You have to be on the sand. You have to go barefoot. You can't make any noise. And then yeah, you said there's a moment that it's just so good. I thought it totally it's like, all right, now I'm in. Like I know what I have to expect. And then just the characters in this movie I think are terrific, and my favorite personally, I thought Emily Blunt was just fantastic as the mother. Yeah. She just killed every performance. She's the one who has the most, like, she has to show, I would say. Like, she has a lot of emotions she has to show, and there's a couple scenes in the middle that just like totally suck me in, almost strictly because of her performance.
Right. I think you have a lot of kind of stereotypical characters in this. So you have John Krasinski, that is the overprotective dad and protector of the family, and he's trying to figure out what to do to make this better, if there's any way to kill these monsters, so kind of stereotypical on that part. And then you have kind of a rebellious, kind of always angry, always kind of somewhat dramatic daughter, and then you have a son that's just trying to in the mix of it. He doesn't really want to be the next dad, he doesn't want to be the next protector. So I think Emily Blunt allows us to have a different type of stereotypical perspective in a family in distress, because she's just really trying to make sure everything stays the same. She's teaching her kids how to read. She's teaching her kids how to do math. She's doing laundry. She's being a mom. So having all those plot points into throwing in the fact that you're running away from monsters that are attracted to noise, I think you can just from that basis alone, you could have a lot of character development.
Mm-hmm. You say that there are a lot of stereotypical things with the characters. One that isn't necessarily something you see a lot, Millicent Simmons plays someone with a hearing deficiency in the film, and I thought her performance was very good for one, but two, just the way that John Krasinski and all the people who worked on the sound just make her audio in a different way than everyone else. I thought it was a brilliant move, because I did not know coming in anything about her character. You learn it fast, so it's not like it's a big plot twist or anything, but every scene with her in it, I thought was just wonderful, because it's even less sound. Like even those little things, you're not like hearing anything. And I just thought it was a great move, just a really nice touch to add even more to the film.
Right. I think we've talked about it before, how we still have no idea what sound mixing versus sound editing is.
Yeah.
But in this movie, they did great at whichever one that is.
Sound everything is good.
It's driven by the sound, and I think that helps because it's the plot point. But for us, I think we were in an audience that was completely packed. It was a sold-out house, which I 100% always would prefer, because it just makes for a better experience. Everyone's so invested in the same storyline that you're in. So even in every other movie, you're sitting there quiet. You sit there and you're engaged. You're just trying to you're not pulling on your phone. You're not talking to your friends. But in this movie, it's like amplified. because the movie, there is no other noise. You hear the leaves ruffle, you hear the, background scene music. So every time that you would make a noise or anything that would make noise in the movie really amplified that. And I think having that added layer of someone that is already sound or hearing deficient made it even more crazy, because there's a level of, she doesn't have a way to protect herself. She has no idea when she's making a loud noise. She has no idea when there's a loud noise around her. So that just adds to a whole different concept in itself.
Yeah, and you say you hear like any small noise in the film, like the leaves or the water running. You hear any small noise in the theater, which is kind of interesting because usually there's like some music to hold it back or some characters talking. Anyone like makes a small cough, you kind of just have to look. Like it's just, it's one of those experiences that if everyone's silent, which for the most part in our theater it was a good experience. It's just crazy how quiet like this whole experience is, and it makes everything better. It makes you feel like you're part of the movie. It makes you feel like you're in this world. And another thing that does a good job with that is something you've brought up with just like usually jump scares are something that feels like a cheap and effective way. But I know you talked about this a lot with me. The sound in this movie makes those jump scares feel more okay.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think if you want to compare it to any relevant horror movie of today's age, I was thinking during the movie, I was thinking like Paranormal Activity. So there's scenes where the girl would just like jump up at the camera and you just like immediately get scared, and then it's paired with the sound and it's paired with the action. But in those significant senses, it's just a jump scare. It's just trying to make you feel intimidated immediately. And you still have that in the root of this movie, but the root of this movie also is that that's how their world is. That's how their sound is interpreted. Anytime that there's quick movements or quick sounds, that's what is so much of a jump scare for them. So I think because it's a representation of their world, it makes it a lot a bigger plot point, bigger way to tell the story.
And then John Krasinski, I thought he did a good job on the performance, but his directing, especially for someone who's never directed a horror movie in his life, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Like he knows what it takes to make a horror movie that just is tense, like almost start to finish. There's a couple times that it lulls a little bit, but that last like half, not at all.
Right.
I was completely sucked in. I think he does a great job with knowing when to put those little jumps and knowing when to really tell you what you need to know. And that's just something so rare to see from someone who's just starting at a horror.
Right. And to go off of that, you've already explained, he does it all. He leads the movie, he writes the movie, he directs the movie. For me, what I found to be good and bad in some senses is this such a tight script. So you see in this movie 2 days, that's it. You see the intro day, that's a scene that's about 5 minutes. And then it's about a 2 to 3 day period after that. Give or take with the nights, you kind of get confused where it comes in line. So it's a very tight script. You don't get to have flashbacks to their pre, good times or anything like that. It is a very tight script. You can't move around it. You have to just embrace what you're in there right there. And since it's also a tight cast, that also includes just kind of those outer bounds. So I really enjoyed that. I think I wasn't expecting that type of story. I think a lot of the like paranormal movies, horror movies nowadays, you need that inclination of a background. And I think they might have taken this out of the card of like Paranormal Activity, because you don't really know what's coming around from these things. But to have just kind of a tight understanding of what's going on is really good.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, I wasn't a huge fan of the dialogue sometimes. When they did incorporate dialogue, it's pretty cheesy. I will find them, like all that stuff. It didn't really feel all that good. And I think because it was the only dialogue, I wish I would have seen something that would have developed into something a little bit stronger, a little bit better. So. Yeah,
I wouldn't say it bothered me all that much. I don't think you're wrong though. I think it is a little on the nose. It's a little, all right, we get it. I didn't necessarily think it was that big of a flaw. I thought right away it brings you into this world and you're totally sucked in, and that kind of lulls a little bit, which it has to do to develop some characters. But I thought it was a little less interesting than the rest of the film. And I did like Millicent Simmons' performance. I love what they did with the audio. I thought her character sometimes lapsed. I thought like she's a little like, all right, come on. Like with the circumstances, you kind of like, you're a little, it feels like she's overreacting on occasion. Sometimes you get that with the characters. And then, as a lot of horror movies do, I thought it was sometimes a little coincidental, a little like, of course this is happening, of course they're getting all this bad luck at once. But because it's only in a 2 to 3 day span, I get it. Like you have to show this. Sure. And I really appreciate this movie for more than anything of what it was able to accomplish, regardless of its very tiny flaws.
Right. I think just in like the terms of where we are in horror films, in the past few years we've seen phenomenal films. Even there's the remake of It, you have Get Out, you have what is it, the Babadook or something?
Babadook, It
Yeah.
Follows, I
It
love.
Follows. All of those were phenomenal movies to come and introduce itself into the horror scene after seeing so many Saws and so many Paranormal Activities to allow itself to grow into something else. I'm really excited. And I think just to incorporate that whole tight script type of mentality and letting yourself just kind of evolve into it. I'd have to say I'm not a huge fan of the monsters. They freak me out and I didn't like them, but I think sometimes it took me away from the reality of the emotions and the reality of severity because they were so just unreal, just so unreal. And I think that's also because there's the curious part of me wants to know why these things are here, you know? They briefly, very, very briefly, just like show a little bit about what happened. And it's not even, they don't show it in the scenes, they show it in the knowledge of where like John Krasinski's looking into. So for me, I wish I would have had more information and I would have been able to like kind of rectify having these random ugly things in my face for an hour and a half. But
I don't know. For one, I thought they were visually, like the effects on them, I thought were great.
Yeah.
For one, I thought they looked very good. And I guess I was just more I just liked that they jumped in and didn't feel the need to explain why this is happening or why no one's here. Or they go right in the middle. And I think it worked. I liked how compact the film was. It was only like an hour and a half.
Right.
It's quick. It knows what it's trying to do. So I didn't need that explanation. So I wouldn't agree with that necessarily. I thought the monsters are very cool. You understand how they work enough to see like how they get around or why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's all I needed out of them. I didn't really want the whole explanation. That could be a prequel if you really want to do that. But for this movie, I thought it was just such a strong horror film on its own. It didn't need anything else. It's just super well directed, incredibly well acted from all fronts. John Krasinski has a future in horror directing if he's going to keep doing this. If I were to give it a review on the college budget, I think it's definitely just full price. I think absolutely go see it in theaters. It's an experience. It's one you don't want to miss, especially if you're a horror fan. I'd say it's more suspense and gripping than it like scared me at points, but it really had me like hiding under my own shirt often.
Yeah. I was moving around a lot and like kind of like up on my knees, moving back in the chair, like covering up my face. So I'd say, yeah, same thing, full price, go see it in theaters. I think as two people that love going to the movies, so we may have a different perspective, but I think just this past year with Get Out being a huge major thriller film coming around, everyone that had ever seen it after the fact said, man, I wish I saw that in theater. Man, I wish I would have saw that in theater. And I think it's because of that group environment that really makes this story go well, and that you can have an opportunity to experience this in a collective is something that you can't get on your own. It's not one of those movies, I'm not saying it won't be bad on DVD or anything, but it's one of those movies that's just infinitely better when you are with people that you're friends with or just random people in an entire filled movie theater.
Wouldn't quite call it a Get Out, but it's close.
No. It's not, I'm saying it's the mentality
Yeah,
of
no.
Get Out. The mentality of if you were to see it with a group of people, how much better would it be? And not to say it's not great on its own, not to say Quiet Place is not good on its own, but when you have those extra added layers to it. I know you didn't like it sometimes when people laugh in theaters, but I
was just so into it. It was more.
Yeah,
you know,
but that's also so fun.
I get
People
it.
have different reactions to it.
Right.
People have such variances of funny quotes or like funny actions and or things that are like, oh, that's kind of weird that you said that. And so
you hear all of them in this movie.
yeah, and that's what makes it great.
That's a wrap on Real Talk this week. Teresa, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. One take.